Dr. Lisa Martinez stood at the front of the large meeting room on Aurora's Edge station. Her hands shook a little as she held her research notes. The room was full of alien beings from across the galaxy, all here to listen to her presentation about ancient civilizations. She looked out at the crowd. The HFY warriors sat in the front rows, their blue skin gleaming under the bright lights. Their leader, Commander Veltar, had arms crossed over his chest and a mean look on his face. Behind them sat the Zephyrians, tall and thin with big heads full of wrinkles. Their chief scholar, Quintess, kept tapping his long fingers on the table like he was bored already. In the back corner, the mystical Vorthak floated in their special chairs. Their purple robes moved slowly, even though there was no wind in the room. Lisa had heard they could read minds, but she hoped that was just a story. Captain Jake Thompson sat with the other humans near the side wall. He gave Lisa a small nod to encourage her. There were only 12 humans on the whole station, and they all felt out of place among these powerful alien races. Lisa cleared her throat and began to speak. Thank you all for coming today. I want to share what we humans have learned about studying old civilizations and keeping their history safe. Right away, someone in the HFY section started to chuckle, then another joined in. Soon, half the room was laughing. Commander Veltar stood up, his massive frame casting a shadow over Lisa. You want to teach us about ancient history? He said in his deep voice. Humans have only been in space for 50 years? We HFY have been warriors for over 10,000 years. The laughter got louder. Lisa felt her face turn red, but she tried to keep going. Yes, we are new to space, but on Earth we have spent thousands of years studying. Earth, Quintus interrupted with a snort. One tiny planet with one young species. We Zephyrians have studied the ruins of 100 dead worlds. What could you possibly know that we do not? Lisa looked at her notes again. She had worked so hard on this presentation. Well, we have developed special ways to preserve old writings and artifacts. We use careful methods to primitive scavengers, Commander Veltar boomed. You humans dig in the dirt like children looking for shiny rocks. You barely understand your own short history, let alone the deep past of truly great civilizations. The room erupted in more laughter. Some of the aliens were pointing at Lisa now. One of the Vorthak made a sound like a bell ringing, which Lisa knew was how they laughed. Captain Thompson started to stand up, his face angry, but Lisa caught his eye and shook her head. She did not want to make things worse. Quintus leaned forward in his chair. I have personally studied artifacts that are older than your entire species. The mathematical concepts we discovered before your ancestors learned to make fire. The idea that humans could teach us about ancient cultures is laughable. More than laughable, added a female HFY warrior. It is insulting. We are talking about civilizations that built starships when your people lived in caves. Lisa tried one more time. But our methods of preservation are very good. We have saved writings and art from civilizations that lived thousands of years ago on Earth. We understand how important it is to keep the past alive. This made the aliens laugh even harder. Commander Veltar shook his head. Thousands of years. Child. The youngest ruins in HFY space are 50,000 years old. The Zephyrians have libraries with books written before your solar system was even formed. One of the floating Vorthaks spoke in a voice like music. The humans speak of keeping the past alive. Yet they know nothing of true ancients. They are babies trying to teach elders how to walk. The other human delegates looked uncomfortable. Dr. Sam Rodriguez, who sat next to Captain Thompson, whispered something angry under his breath. Amy Foster, the team historian, stared at her hands. Lisa felt tears starting to form in her eyes, but she would not let them fall. Not here. Not in front of all these aliens who thought humans were stupid. Commander Veltar walked closer to the front of the room. Let me make something clear to all humans here. You are junior members of the Galactic Council only because we feel sorry for you. You have nothing to teach us about history, culture, or civilization. Your job is to learn from your betters and do the simple tasks we give you. That is correct, Quintess agreed. Perhaps humans can help carry our equipment or clean our laboratories. But serious archaeological work? That requires wisdom that comes from millions of years of advancement. Lisa gathered her notes with shaking hands. I understand, she said quietly. Thank you for your time. As she walked back to her seat, the aliens continued to talk among themselves about how amusing it was that humans thought they could contribute anything meaningful to galactic science. Captain Thompson put his hand on Lisa's shoulder when she sat down. I'm sorry, he whispered. It's okay, Lisa replied, but her voice was tight with hurt and anger. The meeting continued with presentations from the alien scholars. They showed holographic images of massive ruins on distant worlds. They talked about technologies that humans could not even understand. Every few minutes, one of them would make another joke about primitive human archaeology, and the room would fill with laughter again. By the end of the day, it was clear what the Galactic Council thought of humanity. They were tolerated, not respected. They were allowed to stay, but only if they knew their place at the bottom. As the aliens filed out of the room, Lisa heard Commander Veltar talking to his officers. Assign the humans to cataloging duty. Let them organize our old files. At least, they can read. When the room was finally empty except for the human delegation, Captain Thompson looked at his team. Well, he said, that went about as badly as it could have. Lisa stared at the presentation screen, still showing images of alien ruins. They think we're nothing, she said. They think we're too young and stupid to understand real history. Maybe they're right, Amy said sadly. But Lisa shook her head. No, they're wrong about us. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to prove it. 3 months had passed since the terrible meeting where the aliens laughed at Lisa and her team. The humans had been given the worst jobs on Aurora's Edge station. They cleaned laboratories, organized old files, and carried equipment for the alien scientists. Lisa spent her days in the basement storage rooms, sorting through boxes of artifacts that the aliens considered unimportant. Dr. Sam Rodriguez worked beside her, cataloging strange objects that had been forgotten for years. Amy Foster was stuck in the archives, reading through reports that nobody else wanted to look at. But Lisa had not given up. Every chance she got, she studied the artifacts more carefully than she was supposed to. She took pictures with her small camera when nobody was watching. She made notes in a secret journal that she hid in her room. On a cold Tuesday morning, everything changed. Lisa was working alone in storage room 7 when she found a metal box covered in dust. The label on it was written in 5 different alien languages, but it was so faded she could barely read it. It said something about a derelict ship found at the edge of known space. Inside the box were dozens of strange objects. There were metal plates covered in symbols, crystal cubes that glowed softly, and pieces of what looked like jewelry made from materials she had never seen before. Lisa picked up one of the metal plates and held it under the light. The symbols were carved deep into the metal, and they looked very old, but something about them seemed familiar. She had seen similar marks somewhere before. She called Sam on her communicator. Can you come to storage room 7? I need you to look at something. Sam arrived 10 minutes later, carrying his translation equipment. What did you find? He asked. Lisa showed him the metal plate. Look at these symbols. Do they remind you of anything? Sam studied the marks carefully. He had always been good, with languages both human and alien. After a few minutes, his eyes went wide. Lisa, these look like ancient Earth symbols. Not exactly the same, but very similar. That's what I thought too, Lisa said. She pulled out more plates from the box. Look at all of these. There are hundreds of symbols here. Sam set up his portable scanner and began taking detailed pictures of each plate. This is incredible. Some of these symbols look like ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Others remind me of Sumerian cuneiform, but they're different somehow, like they're even older. Amy arrived an hour later when Lisa called her. She was excited to get away from the boring archive work. What's all this about? She asked. Lisa and Sam showed her what they had found. Amy was a historian who specialized in ancient human civilizations. When she saw the symbols, she sat down hard in a chair. "These aren't just similar to ancient Earth writing," she whispered. "They're like the original versions, as if our ancient writings came from these symbols." The three humans worked together for the rest of the day. They photographed every artifact in the box and began trying to translate the symbols. It was slow work, but they were making progress. By evening, they had figured out that the artifacts came from a ship belonging to something called the HFY civilization. According to the faded records, the ship had been found drifting in space with no crew aboard. It was so old that even the aliens considered it ancient history. "The HFY," Sam said, reading from his notes. "I've never heard of them before. Have you?" Lisa and Amy shook their heads. "The aliens never mentioned them in any of the meetings," Lisa said. Over the next few weeks, the three humans worked in secret every day. They met in storage room 7 during their breaks and after their shifts ended. Slowly, they began to understand what they had found. The HFY had been an advanced civilization that existed millions of years ago. They had traveled across the galaxy and built colonies on hundreds of worlds. The artifacts contained maps, historical records, and what looked like family trees showing how different groups of HFY had settled in different parts of space. But the most shocking discovery came when Amy was studying the genealogical records. She was working late one night when she made a connection that made her hand shake. "Lisa, Sam, you need to see this right now," she called them on her communicator, even though it was past midnight. They met in the storage room. Amy had spread out dozens of translated documents on the table. "Look at these family trees and colony records," she said, pointing to different papers. The HFY didn't just settle random planets. They created specific groups that went to specific places. Lisa looked at the documents but didn't understand what Amy was so excited about. "What does that mean?" "It means the HFY were the ancestors of every alien species we know," Amy said. "Look here. This group of HFY went to the HFY, home system. This other group went to what is now Zephyrian space, and this group went to the Vorthak worlds." Sam stared at the papers. "Are you saying that the HFY, the Zephyrians, and the Vorthak are all descended from the HFY?" "Not just them," Amy said. "Every major species in the galaxy. The HFY were the original civilization that seeded the entire galaxy with life." Lisa felt dizzy. "But that means—" "It means we've found the genealogical records of every alien species that laughed at us," Amy finished. "We know who their ancestors were. We know where they came from. We know their original history better than they do." The three humans looked at each other in the dim light of the storage room. They had stumbled onto the greatest archaeological discovery in galactic history. They had found the origin records of every civilization that had called them primitive and stupid. Sam picked up one of the crystal cubes and watched it glow. "What do we do with this information?" Lisa thought about Commander Veltar's cruel laughter. She remembered Quintess calling humans primitive scavengers. She thought about all the alien scientists who had treated them like servants for the past 3 months. "We learn everything we can," she said quietly. "We translate every symbol and read every record, and then we show them exactly what primitive human archaeology can discover." Amy smiled for the first time in months. "They're going to be very surprised." "Yes," Lisa agreed, "they are." For the next 2 months, Lisa, Sam, and Amy worked harder than they had ever worked in their lives. Every day after their regular duties, they met in storage room 7 to study the HFY artifacts. They brought their meals down there and ate while they translated ancient symbols. Lisa had become an expert at reading the HFY star charts. She could trace the paths that the ancient colonists had taken across the galaxy millions of years ago. Each group of HFY had gone to different star systems and started new civilizations there. Sam was working on the most difficult part of their research. He was learning how to pronounce the ancient HFY language. The sounds were strange and hard to make. Some of the words needed to be sung instead of spoken. Others had to be whispered in a special way. "Listen to this," Sam said one evening, reading from a crystal tablet. He made a series of low musical sounds that seemed to echo in the small room even after he stopped. "What was that?" Amy asked. "It's a greeting song that the HFY ancestors used when they met other clans," Sam explained. "But the modern HFY don't know this language anymore. They forgot it thousands of years ago." Amy was studying the cultural records. She had found detailed descriptions of ceremonies, festivals, and traditions that each HFY clan had practiced. These traditions had been passed down to their descendants, but over millions of years they had changed so much that the modern aliens didn't recognize them anymore. "Look at this," Amy said, showing Lisa a long document. "This describes the original war chants of the clan that became the HFY. But it's not just words. It tells you exactly how to stand, how to move your hands, and what the chant means." "Lisa, read over Amy's shoulder. It says the chant is supposed to honor the warriors who died in battle and ask their spirits for strength. The amazing thing is that modern HFY still do something like this," Amy continued. "But they don't understand what the original words meant. They've forgotten the real meaning of their own ceremonies." As the weeks passed, the three humans discovered more and more about the lost traditions of every major alien species. They found the original creation myths of the Zephyrians, written in beautiful poetry that explained how their ancestors believed the universe began. They found the sacred meditation practices of the Vorthak, with detailed instructions for spiritual ceremonies that modern Vorthak had only dim memories of. Sam spent hours every day practicing the pronunciation of ancient chants and songs. His throat was often sore from making the unusual sounds, but he was getting better. He could now perform the war hymns of 3 different alien species in their original form. "The hard part isn't just saying the words," Sam explained to Lisa and Amy. "It's understanding what they really mean. These aren't just songs. They're like prayers and history lessons and promises all combined together." Amy had made charts showing how each modern alien culture connected to their HFY ancestors. She had traced the evolution of their languages, their customs, and their beliefs over millions of years. She knew things about alien history that the aliens themselves had forgotten. "It's like we're holding a mirror to their past," Amy said. "We can show them who they really are and where they came from." But Lisa was worried about something else. "What if they don't believe us? What if they think we made all this up?" "We have proof," Sam said, holding up one of the crystal tablets. "These artifacts are real. The aliens' own scientists can test them and see how old they are." "But will they listen to us long enough to see the proof?" Lisa asked. "They think we're stupid humans who don't understand anything about real history." Amy smiled. "That's exactly why this is going to work. They're so sure that we're ignorant that they won't see it coming." One day, Captain Thompson came down to Storage Room 7 to check on them. He had been worried because the 3 researchers were working so much that they barely slept. "You all look terrible," he said. "When was the last time any of you had a full night's sleep?" "We're fine, Captain," Lisa said, but she knew she looked tired. Her eyes were red from reading ancient symbols for hours every day. Thompson looked around the room at all the artifacts and translated documents. "This is incredible work, but what's the plan? What are you going to do with all this information?" Lisa, Sam, and Amy looked at each other. They had been so focused on the research that they hadn't thought much about what came next. "There's a big Galactic Council meeting next month," Amy said. "All the alien leaders will be there to vote on humanity's permanent status in the galaxy. They're planning to make us a protectorate," Thompson said grimly. "Basically, we'll be servants forever." Lisa stood up and walked to the table covered with HFY genealogical records. "Not if we show them this first." "You want to present your research at the council meeting?" Thompson asked. "More than that," Sam said. "We want to demonstrate it." Thompson looked confused. "What do you mean?" Sam picked up his practice notes. "For the ancient chants. We're going to speak to them in their ancestors' voices. We're going to sing the war hymns that their great-great-grandfathers sang millions of years ago. We're going to tell them stories about their own history that they've forgotten," Amy added. "We're going to prove that primitive human archaeology has discovered something that all their advanced science missed," Lisa finished. Captain Thompson was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. You realize this is either going to make us the most respected species in the galaxy or get us thrown out completely. We know, Lisa said. But we're tired of being laughed at. We're tired of being treated like children who don't understand anything important. Besides, Sam said, we've learned something amazing here. The aliens keep talking about how advanced and ancient their civilizations are. But they've forgotten their own roots. They don't know their real history anymore. Amy nodded. We do. We remember what they've forgotten. Thompson looked at the three determined researchers. All right then. Let's contact Admiral Blake and tell her we have a plan. It's time to show the galaxy what humans can really do. Lisa felt a mixture of excitement and fear. In 1 month, they would either prove that humanity deserved respect, or they would confirm what the aliens already believed about human ignorance. But as she looked at all the ancient knowledge they had uncovered, she felt confident. They had found the voices of the past, and they were ready to let those voices speak. The Great Assembly Hall of Aurora's Edge Station had never been so crowded. Representatives from every major alien species in the galaxy had come for this special meeting of the Galactic Council. Today they would vote on humanity's final status in galactic civilization. Lisa sat with the human delegation in the back corner of the hall. Her heart was beating so fast, she thought everyone could hear it. Sam sat beside her, quietly practicing the ancient pronunciations under his breath. Amy held a data pad with all their research notes, her hands shaking slightly. Captain Thompson and Admiral Blake sat in the front row of the human section. They had flown in from Earth just for this meeting. The Admiral had been shocked when she learned about the Ethmori discovery, but she supported the team's plan completely. Commander Veltar stood at the center of the hall, his blue skin gleaming under the bright lights. He looked even more arrogant than usual. We are here today to decide the future of the human species in our galactic community, he announced in his booming voice. The humans have been with us for 6 months now, said Quintess from the Zephyrian section. In that time they have proven to be exactly what we expected. Simple creatures who can perform basic tasks but lack the wisdom for true civilization. Laughter rippled through the alien sections. Lisa felt her face turn red, but she stayed calm. Everything depended on waiting for the right moment. A Vorthok representative floated forward, her purple robes moving like water. The humans have worked hard in their assigned duties. They have organized our files and cleaned our laboratories well. Perhaps they can continue in these roles as a protected species. Protected species, Commander Veltar repeated with a nasty smile. Yes, that is exactly what they are, like pets that need care from their betters. More laughter filled the hall. Some of the aliens were pointing at the human section and making jokes in their own languages. Admiral Blake started to stand up, her face angry, but Lisa caught her eye and shook her head. Not yet. Before we vote, Commander Veltar continued. Does any human wish to speak? Do you have anything to say in your defense? The hall went quiet. Every alien eye turned to look at the humans in the back corner. Lisa could feel the weight of their stares. Most of the aliens looked amused, as if they expected the humans to beg for mercy. Lisa stood up slowly. Her legs felt weak, but she walked steadily to the center of the hall. Sam and Amy followed her, carrying their research materials. Thank you, Commander Veltar, Lisa said in a clear voice. We do have something to say. This should be amusing, Quintess whispered loudly, making his section laugh again. Lisa took a deep breath and looked around the hall at all the alien faces. Then she began to speak, but not in standard galactic language. She spoke in ancient Ethmori, her pronunciation perfect after months of practice. Children of the Starwalkers, sons and daughters of the first voyagers, hear now the words of your ancestors who crossed the void when the galaxy was young. The effect was immediate and stunning. The laughter stopped. Every alien in the hall sat up straight, their eyes wide with shock. Commander Veltar's mouth fell open. Lisa continued in the ancient language, telling the creation story of the Kethai people. She spoke of brave warriors who had left their home world millions of years ago to settle among distant stars. She, used words and concepts that no modern HFY had heard for thousands of generations, but somehow they understood every word. Some of the HFY warriors began to cry. Others leaned forward in their seats, listening with desperate attention to words that stirred something deep in their genetic memory. When Lisa finished the creation story, Sam stepped forward. He began to chant the ancient war hymn of the Zephyrian clan fathers. His voice rose and fell in the complex melody that their ancestors had sung before battle. The rhythm was hypnotic, the words powerful and moving. The Zephyrian section was completely silent. Several of the elderly scholars had tears running down their faces. Quintus sat frozen in his chair, his mouth open in amazement. Sam's voice grew stronger as he reached the climax of the war hymn. He sang about courage in the face of darkness, about wisdom passed down through countless generations, about the duty to honor those who came before. When he finished, the hall was so quiet that you could hear people breathing. Then Amy stepped forward with her datapad. She began to recite the sacred genealogies of the Vorthak, tracing their spiritual lineage back through thousands of generations to the original Ethemori mystics. She spoke each name clearly, explaining the achievements and wisdom of the ancient, spiritual leaders. The floating Vorthak began to chant along with her, their musical voices joining hers as they instinctively remembered words they had never learned. Their purple robes glowed brighter as they became more excited. When Amy finished the genealogies, the entire hall was dead silent. Every alien stared at the three humans in the center of the room. Commander Veltar was the first to find his voice. "How?" he whispered. "How do you know these sacred words? These are the voices of our ancestors from before memory began." Lisa smiled and held up one of the Ethmori crystal tablets. "Because we found them, Commander. We found the records of your ancestors, all of your ancestors." She gestured to Sam and Amy, who began displaying holographic images of the Ethemori artifacts. The aliens gasped as they saw the ancient star charts, the genealogical records, and the cultural documents. The Ethemori were the first civilization in this galaxy, Lisa explained. They were your ancestors, all of your ancestors. They traveled to every corner of known space and established the colonies that became your homeworlds. Quintus stood up shakily. "The Ethemori? But we have no records of such a people." "You do now," Amy said, holding up her translation notes. "We have their complete historical archives. We know the names of your founding fathers and mothers. We know the original meanings of your ceremonies and traditions. We know where you came from and who you really are." A female Vorthak floated forward, her voice like singing bells. "You have given us back our voices. You have returned the songs of our ancestors to us." Commander Veltar walked slowly toward Lisa. His arrogant expression was gone, replaced by something like wonder. "You called us primitive scavengers who barely understood our own history," he said quietly. "But you have discovered our history. You have found what we had lost." Lisa nodded. "That is what we do, Commander. We preserve the past. We remember what others forget. We keep the voices of history alive." The hall erupted in excited chatter as aliens talked rapidly in their own languages. Lisa could hear words of amazement and gratitude mixed with the discussions. Sam leaned close to Lisa's ear. "I think we surprised them," he whispered. Lisa smiled as she watched the aliens examining the holographic displays of their ancestors' records. "Yes," she said. "I think we did." The great assembly hall remained quiet for several long minutes. Every alien representative stared at the holographic displays showing their ancestors' records. Some were crying. Others sat in shocked silence. Many were whispering prayers in languages they had thought were lost forever. Commander Veltar stood in front of Lisa, his huge frame trembling slightly. The proud warrior who had laughed at humans just months ago now looked like a child who had found something precious he thought was gone forever. "Dr. Martinez," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "you have given my people back our souls. We have searched for our origins for thousands of years. Our historians always believed our true history was lost when our homeworld was destroyed. in an ancient war. Lisa felt tears in her own eyes as she watched the powerful HFY commander struggle with his emotions. Your history was never lost, Commander. It was just waiting for someone to find it and bring it back to you. Quintus walked slowly down from the Zephyrian section, his long legs shaking. He stopped in front of Sam and bowed deeply, something no Zephyrian had ever done to a human before. Dr. Rodriguez, Quintus said, his voice full of shame. I called you a primitive scavenger. I said you could never understand the depth of ancient cultures, but you have preserved our most sacred traditions better than we preserved them ourselves. Sam felt uncomfortable with the great scholar bowing to him. Please stand up, Dr. Quintus. We were just doing what we love to do. We study the past because we believe it's important. Important? Quintus repeated, standing up straight. You have done more than preserve artifacts in a museum. You have brought our ancestors back to life. When you sang our war hymn, I felt my great-grandfather's spirit stirring in my chest. One of the floating Vorthak drifted toward Amy, her purple robes glowing with excitement. Young historian, she said in her musical voice, you spoke the said names of spiritual leaders that we thought were myths. You proved that our oldest legends are true histories. Amy smiled shyly. Your ancestors were amazing people. They created beautiful philosophies and spiritual practices. It was an honor to study their writings. Admiral Blake stood up from the human section and walked toward the center of the hall. She looked around at all the alien faces, seeing wonder and gratitude instead of the mockery that had been there before. 6 months ago you laughed at us, Admiral Blake said in a strong, clear voice. You said we were too young and stupid to understand real civilization. You assigned us to clean your laboratories and organize your old files. Some of the aliens looked embarrassed. A few hung their heads in shame. But our people did something you didn't expect, Admiral Blake continued. We didn't complain about the menial work. We didn't demand better treatment. Instead, we did what humans do best. We studied, we learned, we preserved what others had forgotten. Commander Veltar stepped forward. Admiral Blake, on behalf of all HFY, I formally apologize for our treatment of humanity. We were wrong about your people. We were blinded by our own arrogance. We all were, added Quintus. We judged you by the length of your civilization instead of by the depth of your character. The female Vorthak, who had spoken to Amy now, addressed the entire hall. The humans have shown us something profound. They have demonstrated that wisdom does not come from age alone, but from respect for the past and dedication to preserving truth. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the alien sections. Lisa could hardly believe what she was hearing. The same beings who had mocked them were now praising humanity's contributions. Captain Thompson joined Admiral Blake in the center of the hall. We propose the creation of a new institution, he announced. The Galactic Heritage Institute, where human archaeologists will work alongside alien scholars to study and preserve the cultural history of all civilizations. Dr. Martinez will serve as the director, Admiral Blake added. Dr. Rodriguez will head the Linguistic Preservation Department, and Dr. Foster will lead the Cultural Research Division. The aliens began talking excitedly among themselves. Lisa heard fragments of conversation in dozens of languages, all expressing enthusiasm for the proposed institute. Commander Veltar raised his hand for silence. Before we discuss this institute, we must address the original purpose of this meeting. We came here to vote on humanity's status in the Galactic Council. He looked around the hall at his fellow representatives. I move that humanity be elevated immediately to senior member status with full voting rights and representation on all council committees. Seconded, called out Quintus. Agreed, sang the Vorthak in unison. Similar voices of agreement came from every section of the hall. When Commander Veltar called for the official vote, it was unanimous. Not a single alien voted against elevating humanity's status. Lisa felt dizzy with happiness and relief. In one day, humans had gone from being potential servants to being senior partners in galactic civilization, but the ceremony wasn't over. The female Vorthak floated to the center of the hall and began to sing. Her voice was joined by other Vorthak, then by Zephyrians humming harmony, and finally by HFY adding their deep bass voices. They were singing one of the ancient Ethmori, songs that Sam had taught them. but now they were all singing it together. As the song continued, something magical happened. Aliens who had been enemies for centuries were singing the same words, remembering that they all came from the same ancient family. The music filled the hall with a sense of unity that hadn't existed for millions of years. When the song ended, Lisa found herself surrounded by alien representatives who wanted to thank her personally. Young alien students asked if they could study with her at the new institute. Elder scholars offered to share their own research and artifacts. Hours later, when the formal ceremonies were finally over, Lisa sat with Sam and Amy in a quiet corner of the hall. They watched as aliens from different species talked and laughed together, sharing stories about their newly rediscovered heritage. "I can't believe this really happened," Amy said, still looking stunned. "We did it," Sam said with a tired but happy smile. "We actually did it." Lisa nodded, but she was thinking about something else. "You know what the best part is? This is just the beginning. We've barely scratched the surface of what's in those Ethmori archives. There are probably thousands of lost civilizations waiting to be rediscovered." Captain Thompson approached their table, grinning widely. "So how does it feel to be the most famous archaeologists in galactic history?" Lisa laughed. "It feels like we have a lot more work to do." "Good," Thompson said, "because every major university in the galaxy wants to send students to study with you. And 3 different alien governments have offered to fund archaeological expeditions to search for more Ethmori sites." As Lisa looked around the hall at aliens and humans working together, sharing knowledge and celebrating their common heritage, she felt proud of what they had accomplished. They had proven that humanity deserved respect not through conquest or technology, but through their dedication to preserving the past and honoring the voices of history. The species that had laughed at humans for being too young to understand. Ancient civilizations had learned something important. Sometimes the newest voice in the room is the one that remembers the oldest songs.